So I saw the new Child's Play yesterday, and I got to tell you, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great, and I went into it with very low expectations. On a side note, yes, it does have a very good DID scene in it. I'm sure you've all seen it in the trailers, at least part of it, and we will eventually have it here on this program. Not sure of this year, but definitely by next year. This movie, see, there's so many things to say about this, and a lot of times remakes suck. But the fact is that when you do it right and you don't actually try and remake the original, they can be awesome. Sometimes they can be better than the original. It just depends on how it's done. You look at some of the more popular horror titles of the last however many decades. You look at something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which they totally, brought the franchise back and totally redid, just remade a bunch of sequels. But if you look at the original one, the original remake, the one with Jessica Biel, that one is not that much different than the original movie. That's kind of the problem with, I think, a lot of these, is that they don't really do anything different. If you're just trying to do the exact same story and remake it with a few different scenes and a few different characters, it's going to disappoint. It's going to piss people off. And then if you take a look at, say, the Friday the 13th remake, which I actually enjoyed, it kind of combined like the first three Friday the 13th movies into one. I thought it was fairly well done, but at the same time, there's really nothing to it that is unique or original. It was just bringing back Jason. And, if you're a fan of Jason, you like that. And obviously, Jason doesn't really have a personality. He doesn't speak. So the new Jason, you can't say he wasn't, he ruined the part or something like that. Whereas with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake that came a year later, that movie received a lot of backlash. And one of the reasons was because, the unbelievable amounts of comparisons between Robert Englund and Jackie Earle Haley, saying, well, Robert Englund will always be Freddy Krueger, and this guy can't replace him. And just people, I won't give this guy a chance. It's got to be Robert Englund. I'm a huge Robert Englund fan. And did Jackie Earle Haley do a good job? Honestly, not really. And that's nothing against him. I'm not like a fan of his or anything, or I don't dislike. It's not that I dislike him or something. But he probably wasn't the right person to do that. Now, I think Robert Englund will always be Freddy, but at the same time, I think that some other actors could put on the glove and do it justice. One thing that's been floated heavily these last several years is Kevin Bacon. I guess maybe the last year it was mentioned a few times at least, where Kevin Bacon said that would be interesting to see. If you've watched Hollow Man and seen him play a psycho in that, you would see that I could actually see him doing that. And I'm sure there are some other actors who could play Freddy as well and do a good job. But when you're talking about remaking Nightmare on Elm Street and using the same concept and just redoing it with a different Freddy in modern times, it didn't translate. It's not going to work. If you look at some remakes that did work, that worked really well, two in particular, two Vincent Price movies that were remade. The 86 Fly with Jeff Goldblum, the Cronenberg remake, and then you look at the House on Haunted Hill remake from 1999. These movies were excellent remakes. And the reason why they were excellent remakes, first of all, the original was very old, which means making them a modern version allowed them to use modern effects, and which adds a lot to the story, which really makes it better in a lot of ways. But they changed the story quite a bit. They did some things that were different. For instance, I haven't even gotten to the Child's Play review yet. This is just a premise to this. But if you look at The Fly, the way they made Seth Brundle, this scientist, and they had the love story with him and Gina Davis, and just everything that went on there, where he gradually turned into a fly rather than him coming out with a fly head on his body, which is what happens in the original. It's different. You look at House on Haunted Hill. In the original House on Haunted Hill, Vincent Price's character, Frederick Lauren, okay, he's trying to kill his wife. And he set up this elaborate scheme where at the end of the movie, it's revealed that he was just trying to kill his wife. And he made it seem like the house was really haunted. Well, in the remake, when you get to the end of the movie, you find out the house really is haunted. The house really is alive. And that was different than the original. They went in a different way. And in Nightmare on Elm Street remake, they were teasing this. For the longest time, when you watched the movie and when you got to the middle of it, they made it seem like possibly Freddy Krueger was actually innocent. And these kids, these little kids, lied about him touching them. And that's why he was killed falsely. I was hoping they were going to go with that and finish the job and say that he was actually innocent, that he wasn't a child molester, that he was out for revenge against lying little kids. If they would have done that, it would have been so much better because it would have been totally different from the original. And at that point, you would have almost been able to separate Robert Englund from Jackie Earle Haley and been like, okay, this is a different Freddy. Let's not compare them. And that is exactly what Child's Play did. That movie is nothing like the original at all. The only similarities is that it's called Child's Play. It involves a doll, and the doll's name ends up being Chucky. And then you have Andy and Karen's, and Mike, they kept the characters' names, but the characters aren't even the same at all. They're totally different characters, just like the names are paying homage to them. Even Chucky himself, like, all this time going into this, people are talking about, well, Brad Dourif's Chucky. Same way with Robert Englund being Freddy. Brad Dourif's Chucky, you can't replace him. I like Mark Hamill, but you can't replace him. I will tell you that whole movie, I never once even consciously thought about Mark Hamill voicing this doll. Like, I never once thought to myself, oh, Brad Dourif was better, because it wasn't the same character. It's not at all the same. In the original Chucky, you have a serial killer transferring his soul into a doll. This evil bastard who, he's evil. He's trying to take over this kid's body. He's trying to kill his family. I mean, it's a serial killer in a doll. Great story, great movie, but you don't ever feel bad for Chucky. Okay, you know he's a little bastard. It's this evil guy in a doll. Okay, with this movie, basically what happens, I don't want to spoil anything, but you probably already know that this doll, this robotic doll, goes haywire. There was this guy in the factory who intentionally programmed him to not be able to restrain from violence. So this doll, who's supposed to be this kid's friend, goes nuts. And it's not an evil person in there. Like, I'm going to tell you, when I watched this movie, I genuinely felt bad for that doll. Like, at the beginning, when they showed all the bonding between him and Andy and them becoming friends, and I actually really like the doll design. Like, it's a cute doll. I mean, they made it seem like, they made it look like a lovable toy that you could actually attach to, and the way he acted, the way he smiled, like, it was a really cool toy. And when he tries to be friends with Andy and he'll do anything to protect him, he pulls at your heartstrings when you watch it. Like, I mean, I felt genuinely bad for this doll. When he got punished, when he got put in the closet, when the mom took him away, when Andy opened the closet, he was in there shaking with the knife. He was so sad because he got put in there. I mean, it was genuinely like, wow, I feel bad for this doll. And then the doll ends up killing people because it just wants to make Andy happy. Like, it doesn't know any better because it's not a human. It can't process human emotions, and it has no value for human life because it's a robot. But just watching that doll actually, like, just struggle to be liked, and that's really what ends up happening. It's the doll that's trying to get approval from people. The story starts out where Andy's trying to have a friend, so his mom gets him the doll, but it's really the doll, the whole story, that wants to have a friend, and Andy betrays him kind of because he gets mad at him for killing stuff, and he doesn't realize he's doing anything wrong. And That's a totally different movie. If I described that movie to you and said this wasn't Chucky, it wasn't called Child's Play, you'd have no idea what I was talking about. So it's not trying to be like the original. It took the original's name and the doll and just went total 180 the other way and made something that was really fun to watch. I mean, the whole thing, it was just a great modern concept with technology. And again, I think one of the reasons that the movie is so good is because technology has changed so much since the first Child's Play was made in regards to the storyline they use with the electronic Alexa type controls that they didn't have back then. Same way that, like when they made The Fly, the technology in that movie, not only the design with the special effects, but the stuff that Brundle is doing in that movie. That technology didn't exist when the original was made. So it's a totally different take, and it's just a lot of fun. It's really good. Aubrey Plaza is extremely hot in that movie. I've honestly never really known much of her, but she looks great in that movie. And I would have loved to have seen her had a real DID scene that wasn't a gruesome horror scene, like a traditional crime fiction one. She looks incredible. But that movie's... Yeah, that scene, the DID scene, it was very good. It's fairly lengthy, longer than I thought it would be based on the trailer. And one more thing about this new Child's Play that's totally different from the original. See, in the original, when you watch it, almost the whole movie, Chucky is just this doll. It's allowed to turn its head, blink its eyes, and say, "Hi, I'm Chucky, want to play?" That's all it does. So... later on in the movie, when it's finally revealed to Karen Barkley that the doll comes alive, it's like, holy shit, this doll's alive. It's the first time you see it. So for the characters, when an adult says to Andy, the doll's not alive, it's just a doll, that's it. It's a doll. But then he comes alive. Well, in this remake, in this new version, the doll is actually alive the whole time. The doll is able to walk by itself. It's able to pick shit up. It's able to do whatever someone programs it to do. So those scenes with the guy that Aubrey Plaza was having the affair with, when the doll would hide behind the fridge and jump out at him and scare him, which is one of the funniest parts of the movie, that was acceptable. That doll walking around doing shit is totally normal and acceptable. So to say Andy, the doll's not really alive, you're just imagining it. The doll was moving around and they all knew it. So the doll could kind of just, you wouldn't know if the doll is doing what it's supposed to do or plotting something against you, because it's allowed to move and talk and do and learn stuff and do whatever it wants like a person. So that was totally different. That was probably the biggest difference. And in the original, the doll is just this inanimate thing that can only swivel its head. But in the remake, the doll can do whatever it wants and act like a human, basically. So, yeah, it was totally different take, which I found to be pretty interesting. I've thought about doing movie reviews for a while now. I think I have a segment I was going to call called The Kidnapper Recommends, where I recommend a movie for you guys to watch with some more detail and even some visuals, obviously, because this movie's not really released yet outside of the theater. I don't have anything to show and whatnot, but yeah, if you're looking for something to watch, I would check it out. Obviously it's not for sale yet on Amazon, so I can't point you there, but yeah, I mean, I would check it out, and let me know what your thoughts are on me talking more about movie recommendations, because I do have some stuff I'd want to do with that. And I guess this is kind of like a test run on that. But yeah, a great movie. I'll watch it again. I mean, I was impressed by it. I went in with low expectations, but yeah, if more remakes would not try and be remakes, that's the thing. This didn't remake anything. I don't even know what you want to call it. That's the thing, because it's not. It's just totally different than what the original Child's Play was, and because of that, I don't think you shouldn't be seeing anybody really comparing Brad Dourif to Mark Hamill or comparing the two Chuckies. You can't compare them because they're not the same. They're two totally different killers. with the same name and same similar look, but it's not the same character at all. Totally different, which is why it works. You know, maybe that's what they were going for. I don't know. I'd have to find out that if they were saying, okay, we don't want people to compare the movies, we don't want people to compare the characters, this is something totally different. And I think it can exist in its own world. I think they can make sequels to this, and I know they're making a Child's Play TV series. Don Mancini's making it with Brad Dourif, a continuation after Cult of Chucky, that series, that franchise. So yeah, Universal's going to make that, and I think MGM can continue to run with this and make it its own thing, and the two will never clash or cause any kind of conflict because they're just so different. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. So thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.